Could you tell us a little bit about what's happening in the auto industry, given the announcements, the recent and shocking announcement from Volkswagen that they're suspending the jobs agreement and the CBAs?
Yes, this is big, real big news, and it's really shocking as well. Two dimensions behind this. First of all, it's shocking because of Volkswagen, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about this, because Volkswagen is really like a company where you would have never expected such kind of an announcement, particularly regarding the workers' side. And the second thing, it really shows how deep and how profound and maybe how brutal this transformation in the auto industry is. It's really about the survival of a number of companies.
I mean, you say, coming back to Volkswagen, that it's even more shocking that it's from Volkswagen. And it's true, they have sort of been seen as a gold standard in the industry with the level of co-determination that you don't see anywhere else. So could this be argued that this is, there was too much co-determination, that there was too much accommodating workers and their needs?
No way. I think there can't be too much. There can't be too much of dialogue and workers' influence. I think the fault is really on. I mean, the mistakes have been made by the company management. Clearly, I mean, we have to see that Volkswagen, as a multinational player in the auto sector, was really big in China for decades, and they made a lot of money in China. But now, today, they simply don't sell that much cars anymore in China because they're behind when it comes to technologies, and because their leadership was based on old internal combustion engines, so gasoline engine technology. But Chinese people buy electric vehicles today, and the producers are Chinese companies much more than Volkswagen, and that's the main issue. And so the money, which is no longer the profits, which are no longer coming from China, now putting the company under big pressure. And this is now passed over to the workers as well in Europe and elsewhere in the world, and particularly also in Germany.
This is not going to go away, though. I mean, there is a transition happening in the auto industry with the move to electric vehicles. And as you say, it'll be a question of survival if the companies can adapt to that transition. How can this transition be made just for workers?
And maybe one step back. I mean, what is a fact today is like, or which has been a fact already for many years, is like China is today the biggest automotive market in the world by far. So they are having they're selling double of what is sold in the US or in Europe or elsewhere. That's number one. Number two is, when it comes to the new electric drivetrains, they are leading the way from a technological point of view, but also from a cost point of view. So therefore, what we consider to be the future of the auto industry, more electric, because otherwise we'll not keep with the goals of the Paris Agreement and reducing carbon dioxide, particularly in the transport sector. So it's required to do it, and then therefore China is now leading the way. That's a fact, and this will not go away. Now, of course, you can argue why are they able to sell their cars at such low prices, which also, like, for instance, led to high import tariffs in the US now, in Canada, but also in the EU, because they say it's unfair. There's lots of state subsidies in there, so this allows the Chinese car makers to actually sell their cars at unbelievably low prices, and so that's one part of it. But the other part of it is really like China is leading the crowd when it comes to EVs, and that will not go away. So therefore, everybody else will, in a way, have to adapt to this. There are other technologies out there. There is, like, the Japanese are promoting very much hybrid vehicles and etc. So it's not, I think we can't say right now that EV is the one and only solution. But still, electrification is certainly the solution, even if it's only partly. What I always say is, like, there are the good old car companies, or good old, and most of them, I mean, they are 100% unionized normally. We get good bargaining agreements with them. And so therefore, these are our main partners so far. In that situation, if it's a struggle for survival, then this also, of course, puts us, unions, quite under pressure, at least in these circumstances. Chinese companies are rarely organized at all. There are no unions. If you look at Tesla, I mean, it's one of our famous examples, unorganized and even pretty anti-union.
It's directly anti-union, I would say.
It is, yeah. And then of course, also, if you look at some other tech companies which are now coming into the mobility market, like the big Googles, Apples, etc., the same thing, no union. So that's a big challenge.
I mean, if you say that there's a process of, of a transition that we then obviously want to be just for the workers, so make sure that they can come along on the ride. But in this process, do we risk, like you said, do we then risk to lose these gold standards that have been set by the big auto companies? What would be the solution to make sure that that also becomes part of the transition, like the tradition of involving unions, of, co-determination?
Yeah. When you say gold standard, let me quickly explain. It is really like I don't know any other car company where there was so much really, where workers, not only from Germany, but really from around the world in their global works council structure, had an influence on and had the opportunity to really talk to corporate management and have like a fair sourcing above all plants and countries in the world. This is pretty exceptional. I don't know any other company that makes it that good. I mean, where such global standards, really global gold standards exist, if we can say so. Now, secondly, I think it is very clear also for the colleagues in Germany that it's the company management that needs to be blamed. It's not the workers that can be blamed for the current crisis. So therefore, yes, they are in the position, as the company has cancelled all of the existing collective agreements, they will now go into the negotiation of new collective agreements. So it's not that as if there was no more collective bargaining in Volkswagen. No, it's continuing the same way. All the structures are there, the parties are there, and everybody is going into these negotiations. Now, the question is, of course, what will come out of this? I don't know. This remains to be seen. But clearly, I think we still have very strong unions. We have still very strong social dialogue and options for collective bargaining in Volkswagen with the IG Metall and the Works Council influence, etc.
But do you think it's possible to replicate that model or structure of social dialogue in the transition to a new auto industry?
Absolutely, and we see other examples. I mean, if you just look into the bargaining of the UAW in the US with the big three, what they always call the big three, so Ford, GM, and Chrysler, which is now part of Stellantis, I mean, it was the same thing. So, I mean, important parts of the bargaining were around the transition. How to make sure new battery factories, for instance, are part of the national agreement. Very often they are joint ventures with other partners. So therefore, the companies try to take this out of the national bargaining agreement with the UAW. And the UAW actually managed to actually make these battery factories a part of the national bargaining agreement, meaning that people who, for instance, transfer, let's say, from an engine plant into a battery factory, just as an example of transition, it'll be a just transition because the terms and conditions in the battery factory are actually the same as they are in the engine factory. And I think these are good examples of just transition, which we see everywhere in the auto industry. There is still a huge, it's not that it's done everywhere and that it's just and good everywhere, but there are good examples out there, and I think many are trying to follow these good examples. But we need more of these good examples, number one. And so we also need to learn from each other. And I think this is also an important role for us as IndustriALL to spread the news of good examples so that people have something they can look at and they can try to replicate when they go into their national bargaining, number one. But the second thing is, as I said before, there are too many companies out there in the auto sector now which are unorganized, where unions do not play a role. And this we have to change as fast as possible. So it's about organizing.